obstructing the roadway in, which is still a state charge, rather than prison time, although there have been an exception. So the last thing I want to say about OREPA is that we have always believed in using every tool in the toolbox. So we don't just do resistance in the street. We do the public hearings, we do writing the letters, we do advocacy stuff in Washington, D.C. We serve on advisory boards and health panels, and we do the media work, we do public meetings and education and organizing. But none of that alone is enough. It takes every tool in the toolbox. And so we are firmly committed to nonviolent civil resistance. And we're delighted to be joined by so many of you, not the first time you've been here this weekend, as we celebrate the history of Nukewatch and the resistor, and also we do a resistance action. So let me tell you just, how am I doing on time, by the way? Okay, good. Let me tell you, use my last time to tell you a little bit more about the Y-12. It's now called the Y-12 National Security Complex, is what they call it. And we've always believed this big sign out there, one of the things we should do for an action is doctorate, so it says National Insecurity Complex. That's really what's going on out there. But we call it the Y-12 Nuclear Weapons Complex. The sign used to say the Y-12 Nuclear Weapons Plant, but after September 11th, it got changed to the National Security Complex. The mission didn't change. And the nuclear weapons complex now in this country has been downsized somewhat, but it includes Los Alamos and Livermore and Sandia labs. And Los Alamos also does some production stuff for the plutonium pits, and I think Jay will probably tell us a little bit about that as well. The Nevada test site, the Pantex plant that assembles and disassembles nuclear weapons, some operations at Savannah River to produce tritium for nuclear weapons. But the main manufacturing goes on at Los Alamos, which is responsible for plutonium pits. Oak Ridge does the highly enriched uranium secondaries. And the Kansas City plant, which is responsible for all the non-nuclear pieces, the arming, fusing, and firing, the electronics package, they call it, part of the nuclear weapons. So I mentioned earlier that Y-12 produced material for the first bomb, and they've been producing for every bomb since. Their mission now is something called the Life Extension Program. We have several warheads in our nuclear stockpile now, and most of them are in the range of 20 years old, those that are in our active strategic stockpile. And they were originally designed with a shelf life of 40 years. That's how they were certified reliable. Although recent studies have indicated they'll last 80 to 85, maybe 100 years. But in the mid-1990s, the weaponeers got worried that our bombs were getting too old. They might not work when we went to use them. And so they launched the Life Extension Program. And what they do in Oak Ridge now is they, for the W-76 warhead, they retrieve the nuclear secondary from that warhead, and they break it down, and they replace old parts, they refurbish parts, and they may be adding new components to it. But when it's done, they have now a secondary that is reliable for, in the words of DOE, 100 to 120 years. So as Mary Dennis says, the work that's happening in that facility today is casting a shadow over the next century. In fact, with the W-76 warhead, because of the work that's being done in Kansas City, modifying the arming, fusing, firing mechanism, it's not even the W-76 anymore. It's the W-76 Modification 1, which means it has a new military capability, which means if you're in Russia keeping score, we're building a new nuclear warhead through the Life Extension Program. We're doing the W-76 now, but we plan to do work on the B-61 and the B-63 when their numbers come up. And we've already finished the W-78, which was for the MX missile. We did the life extension regime for that. So that's just a little bit about Y-12, and I'll be glad to answer questions.